still don't know how it started.
Attention all citizens. You are advised to take shelter at the Raccoon City Police Station.
Please describe your current emotional state.
I'm steady, calm, ready to do my job to the best of my abilities.
You don't understand. The situation's worse than I thought.
Aliens will die.
Everyone keep your mouths shut.
This may be a one-way ride, so be prepared.
Tell me everything.
But we never meant for this to happen!
So we're not in the middle of a zombie plague right now, but there are certain diseases out there that are mutating in strange ways. It seems like they could possibly lead to a zombie sickness. A couple of the most compelling ones are prion diseases. Now, a prion is a protein, a mutated protein that when it gets in your brain, it mutates all the other proteins in your brain. Mad cow disease is a prion disease. Mad cow disease in people is called CJD, or Creutzfeldt-Jakob's disease. So new indications with CJD is that the symptoms are changing and it's becoming more easily passed from one person to another and from animal to human. So much so that some of the new symptoms include, in late stages, violent aggression. Some experts have recommended that if someone starts showing advanced signs of variant CJD, VCJD, you should lock them in a room, let them go violently insane until they die, because if they attack you and bite you, they could potentially spread the sickness to you, and then you will go violently insane and spread it on. That's exactly the premise of Zombieland. Another obvious candidate is rabies. The Zombie Research Society has interviewed several virologists that have suggested that it would not be impossible to combine a highly deadly strain of rabies with, say, a highly deadly strain of the flu, mix in a few other viruses to sort of cause this super virus to be faster acting and essentially create a super rabies that causes people to go violently insane and attack one another. So we may not be in the middle of a zombie outbreak right now, but in my opinion, all roads point to zombies.
So we have some scary news that I want to cover today. First off, we have the date of the next pandemic. When is this going to be, and where is this going to originate from? We've heard from people like Bill Gates, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the World Health Organization, and Johns Hopkins University.
This outbreak comes on the heels of an announcement that a highly contagious airborne strain of the rabies virus has infected people in at least 18 countries. Some are calling it a...
The media will get right on top of this and report it. They'll have medical experts on. There'll be reports from the CDC in Atlanta as to what's being done. It's necessary in order to get people to do whatever can be done to slow the infection, and the hope would be to stop the infection. But all of these things, unfortunately, will frighten people. Everyone wants to live. They're going to want their families to live. These kinds of situations in which there's a limited amount of cure and a huge number of people who need it never work out well for most people. Law enforcement fall prey to this illness. There'll be a breakdown of law and order in our society. And that becomes a self-perpetuating, vicious cycle in which eventually everything is destroyed.
I came across this video that we are going to watch, which really adds another piece of evidence to the body of evidence, I would say, that shows that a premeditated plan. So everyone, of course, remembers Event 201. That's well known, the simulation of a pandemic held by Johns Hopkins University, the World Economic Forum, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. That showed how a response to a supposed pandemic was gamed out. And then months later came to fruition. Well, so I've uncovered this video from the Council on Foreign Relations, or CFR, is the single most prestigious and influential Washington think tank. So the fact that this video was published by the CFR speaks volumes, and its corporate members, who it represents, are all the usual suspects, the mega corporate entities that are basically more powerful than many countries. So it's a representation of this supranational elite. BlackRock, Bank of America, Apple, Google, Meta, Facebook, Goldman Sachs. I mean, it's huge. Pfizer is on the list. It has a massive donor list of billionaire venture capitalists, including, of course, the Gates Foundation, among many, many others. It's titled, "What a Zombie Apocalypse Can Teach Us About Pandemics." And the description reads, "What would happen if one day the dead rose up, hungry for human flesh and brain? This scenario has played out in movies and books for decades, but science fiction fans aren't the only ones giving some thought to the zombie apocalypse. The CDC, major universities, and even the Department of Defense have plans for the day the dead rise. Not because they expect it, but because it serves as a useful intellectual exercise for infectious disease and foreign policy. Although international protocols exist to prevent the rapid spread of disease, each country's individual policies, infrastructure, and interests ultimately decide the course of any outbreak, including zombies." So the CFR, CDC, Pentagon, and whichever universities they're referring to, were not planning for a viral pandemic per se. They were planning a real military response for a fictional threat of a zombie apocalypse, or in order to make people think that a virus would be equal to a zombie apocalypse. So let's get started with the video.
Zombies, the flesh-eating, brain-hungry monsters that ravenously attack the world until everyone is infected. Could such a frightening science fiction disaster actually happen? As far-fetched as it seems, according to what we know from lore and canon, zombieism would work the same way as infectious diseases like SARS, Ebola, and the flu. Once a person gets infected, They pass it from person to person via close contact.
So they're comparing SARS, Ebola, and the flu with zombieism.
As with any newly emerging pathogen, the search for a cure would be complicated, since its origins would likely be a mystery. Scientists believe the risk of such a devastating scenario is growing larger. People are building homes in new areas, living and working near unknown insects and animals, which can carry new unknown diseases, increasing the chances of a deadly outbreak that could possibly spread around the world.
So this idea that urbanization, basically cities expanding into natural areas where these wild viruses that we've never encountered are lurking and then causing pandemics. I remember this being promoted early on as an explanation that urbanization causes pandemics, and as if urbanization is this brand new phenomenon.
So what can be done now to protect the world from this zombie future, or from another disease that behaves like zombieism? All countries need to develop the basic health infrastructure to identify pandemics when they start. More funding and improved international coordination are needed for stronger investigations into how diseases spread within.
Now, we all know that another pandemic is coming. There isn't an expert or a world leader that doesn't agree. The only question is, when? Well, according to Bill Gates and the World Health Organization, the next pandemic will happen in 2025, and it's going to originate in Brazil. Now,
why are they worshipping the Satan? How does Satan fool and play with their minds? We will be going into the details of patterns of Abrahamic nations are changing for the worst ever. That we are forced to believe that the Shaitan is surely using some cunning ways to play with our minds. In 2019, a huge carnival took place in Brazil where millions were spent. It was a national level festival, and guess what was the theme of the carnival? It was satanic worship. It might sound unbelievable because who would be so disrespectful to celebrate the devil and the Satan? But brothers and sisters, it turns out people do find it cool and worthy to have a whole festival themed around the Shaitan, the devil. It is also important to note here that Brazil is a very poor country, but they still find it important to spend millions on a carnival that makes fun of religions, especially the Abrahamic ones, and celebrate and promote Shaitan. Also, a major part of Brazil's population is Christian. They even have a statue of Hazrat Isa alayhi salam mounted on one of the highest hills in the country. But even that did not stop them. Wait till you hear about the details of what happened at the carnival. The main event portrayed a whole line of devils and jinns that were made in the form of red burning statues. It was actually a picture of hell. The theme implied that all the Christians and Muslims will go into the Jahannam, the hell, and there will live with all the Satans. Even Jesus will be there, and there is no other concept of paradise or Jannat. Then they brought on the stage a man and a woman depicting Adam and Eve. Na'udhu billah, they were naked and wearing weird satanic costumes. Adam and Eve could be seen dancing in a cage, and huge apples surrounded them. Now in Christianity and in the Bible, The fruit that Hazrat Adam and Hazrat Awwa alayhi salam ate was apple. However, the exact fruit has not been mentioned in the Quran. There was a huge portrayal of a snake with a satanic figure on its head, and this referred to their hero who had brought the fruit inside the Garden of Eden. The whole point of this carnival was to glorify all satanic acts, sins, and figures ever discussed in the religion. The festival went on for several days, and every day they brought a new act. One of the days they went as far as showing Jesus, Hazrat Isa alayhi salam, as a weak figure. He was shown fighting with the strong devils who killed him in no time. And there Jesus dies in humiliation, after which the act implied that he was nothing special, nor he was a prophet. He was just a human who pretended to be the messenger of Allah and the advocate of good deeds, and he will never come back. And then there was a grand procession with the biggest monument of the devil, the Satan, who was sitting on the throne. And he was surrounded by all his fellow devils and Satans. These were the Satans that were the gods and masters of those who contact with black magic for their evil motives. That's why black magic is considered a severe form of shirk in Islam and strictly prohibited in Christianity as well. The fight between Hazrat Mikail alayhi salam and the Satan was also one of the topics, and obviously they made the shaitan win the battle.